Edo State Independent Electoral Commission had on March 24, 2022 issued a notice to political parties and the general public for the conduct of the local government election in the state. The state electoral umpire had in the release scheduled the election for Tuesday 19, 2022, which was less than 1 month from the day of the publication. This was greeted with mixed reactions as political gladiators and observers in the state raised some concerns bordering mostly on shortness of the notice and the very limited time for political parties to prepare and participate in the election. Some others, however, welcomed the development, considering that the chairmanship and councillorship seats in all the 18 local government areas of the state have remained unoccupied since the expiration of the immediate past local government chairman in March 2021. This discordant tune, however, changed in the days that followed, with both the EDSEC and major political parties confirming their readiness for the exercise. With these assurances, the public looked forward to the emergence of candidates through party primaries, but this never happened. This was due to a restraining order issued by the Federal High Court in Benin on Thursday, April 7, putting the election and all the processes leading to the contest on hold. What are the grey areas and contentious issues that led to litigations? What are the implications of the development in the electoral process? These and more are matters arising on this week's edition of Frontline. And I have here with me in the studio Pastor Gray Iyayi, a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, to do justice to this. I am Ube Tuba Presai. Welcome. And so, you're welcome to Frontline.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here.
Pleasure.
Good to have you too. And so let's delve in straight to the issue on ground. What was your initial reaction as a citizen? What was your initial reaction to the restraining order that forced EDSEC to suspend the local government election in Edo State?
I think as a lawyer, I was happy about it because I was one of those people who was very, very much expecting that the local governments will be constituted and that they will take off very quickly. But again, you have to follow due process. That's the essence of democracy. As much as we wanted the elections to take place, we also knew that if we did not follow due process, the result of the election at the end of the day could be challenging courts, and all the effort made by all the various candidates and parties would just be in vain. So it was very good that at that point it was economical, very much economical, that the court came in and then they issued the restraining order. It was a good thing that the elections were about to take place, but again we have to follow due process so that whatever we get at the end of the day will not be challenged and then will be thrown back to square one. So that was it. It was sad for some people, but I mean, I think we have to follow the law because there is a law governing the election, and we just have to follow it.
And also the fact that not only, I don't think it's just the economic benefit.
Yes.
The result of the election could have been also contested, yes, and it could have also raised uproar among groups, you know, leading to protests and violence. What do you think about that?
Exactly, because we have had instances like this. Let's look at the election that brought Amici as governor of Rivers State. The issue there was actually the primaries of the PDP. Umeha was not the winner of the primaries, and they went ahead, featured him INEC went ahead, conducted the election, ignoring, the protest by Rotimi Amechi. And eventually, when Romeha had been sworn in, though he was a PDP member, the process was reversed, and Amechi was later ordered to be sworn in by the Supreme Court as the governor of Rivers State. So we've had those kind of things that should serve as indicators, where the court and the law has given amber lights, you win. And where they give a red light, you stop. And then when they give a green light, you go ahead. So I think we should have learned from some of these things.
Okay, you said something earlier about due process.
Yes.
Is that the only contentious issue that resulted in litigations and eventual suspension of this of the local government elections?
There were many things involved, but due process was the umbrella. You see, the timing. When we are talking of election, we are talking of getting candidates that are supposed to stand for the election. Then the process by which those candidates emerge, has to be credible. Because if the process is not credible, then the result could also be challenged, just as we've seen in Amechi's case. Then also, the issue of following the law, because in constitutional law, there's what they call the doctrine of covering the field. And what we mean by that is that if there is a superior law in place and then there's a subsidiary legislation that conflicts with the provision of that superior law, then the subsidiary legislation, to the extent of its inconsistency, falls aside. So FCEC cannot issue directives that are in conflict with the overarching electoral law of the country. I think that was where the issue actually came. A state has no rights, to actually make a law that is in conflict with the constitution of the country, and the inconsistency in it will make it to fall aside, just as we have seen in this case. Although the substantive issue has not been looked into, but prima facie, the court looked at it that there is a reason to stop this election. Otherwise, the subject matter of the suit, the rest, might be destroyed if the election is allowed to take place. And certain things will be reversible, and the loss will be monumental, and then democracy suffers.
Okay. So, compared to other local government elections in the state, what are the likely steps and procedures that were not properly adhered to by FCEC now?
I think the timing was wrong. There was too much of a rush. Yes, we need a local government election, but we need very credible local government election. It would have led to exclusion of certain people, even within the party, and then from certain parties. That inclusiveness, I think, was the driving force, in those people that actually went to court, that this process is rushed, this process, the timing is not right, and we're going to be excluded, and we're not going to be allowed to participate. You see, if one goes into an election and he wins and the election was credible, it is easier to accept the result. And we're talking of violence. You see, is the frustration about such actions that exclude other people from the process, that sometimes you see them venting the frustration by acts of violence. And we should avoid that. Let the election take place as it is supposed to take place, when it is supposed to take place, in the manner it's supposed to take place. Let it be credible, and the result will be easier to accept. And people can say, okay, I lost in this contest. Let me prepare for the next election.
And I was also given enough time to prepare for this one.
Exactly.
And so, even if I lost,
I mean, I lost, and I lost.
the result will be accepted in good faith.
In good faith.
Okay. So, do you think the timeline was enough for both the political parties and STEC to prepare for this election?
Though the political parties were enthusiastic.
Yes, because they said some of them said they were ready.
Wait, let me tell you, many of them were not prepared. And whatever came out of it, there would have been contentions. And contentions that will not bring any credible results. So I don't think the timeline was actually preparing for election is a very big issue.
Very big.
Mobilization, publicity, reaching out to various interest groups and getting their consent or endorsement. And the time wasn't just there. And people would have just rerouted themselves through the process and gotten there. And then the negative effects would have been felt by the masses, honestly, because when the wrong people are in position, you can expect that they won't deliver on their promises. They won't deliver on their promises, and then the masses suffer.
And so, for every action, they say there's a reaction. What are the likely implications of these developments on the electoral process in the state?
Well, it will put a check on those people who want to violate, some electoral laws. This one is going to serve as a warning that whatever we do, we've got to be careful. We've got to follow the law, and we've got to follow due process. And then also, I don't know whether EDSEC, I can't hold brief for them or anybody, they consulted widely with representatives of the various political parties, the civil society, before agreeing or fixing the dates. I believe if they had done so, this issue of the timing would have been raised.
Something like a town hall meeting?
Town hall meeting. Allow people to know what you're about to do, make their comments, make their inputs, raise their objections, and then the areas, the gray areas, you can iron them out, and then you save yourself the kind of, I don't want to call it embarrassment, but it was something like it, that you have suffered, and then the process is drawn back. Because what was actually the rush for? What was actually the rush for? Just a few days, and whatever we would have gotten out of it would have still raised contentions and would have been challenged in courts. And supposing the election went on, and then somebody comes up and says that, look, that election ought not to have gone on. Think of the money, the time, the energy, the resources that people have put into the election. If eventually we were told that the result of that election cannot stand the test of time.
For the ordinary person or
Yes.
the average layman, most of them will not understand why was it cancelled. Is this what is it? What was the process? What should it have been like?
I think there should have been enlightenment. There should have been consultation, and some things, legal issues, are difficult to explain to the ordinary man. It's difficult to explain, just like you have said. Election has been scheduled and then it is cancelled, or the court has issued a restraining order. But we have to make the common man understand that we must do things according to due process, and that it is safer, it is less expensive, it is more peaceful to actually wait a few more days or a few more weeks.
Now, what's the least date, for an election to be conducted? What's the least? Because this one was 30 days, right?
It was 30 days.
So what's the least date for an election to be conducted?
I think if they had waited for 6 weeks, this contention wouldn't have come up. You know, the electoral law gives a time lag. It doesn't say that you must conduct an election on so period, but it will say not less than this period and not more than that period.
Okay.
And I think ETSEC pushed that because they went less than the minimum number of days.
Okay.
That was where the problem arose. And having said that, I believe if they had waited or postponed the election for a few more days, in the time of Jonathan it happened, and election was scheduled, and they said, okay, because of the problem in the Northeast, we need the election can be postponed for another 6 weeks. It was still within the time limits to conduct an election. And military operations went on, cleared all those terrorist elements. And then in Borno, election could be conducted very safely and very fairly. Indeed, when Jonathan gave considered defeat, votes will still be counted in Borno. It was safe enough for election to be conducted. It was within the time limit. And elections have been shifted here too. And it was within the time limit.
And let's not forget that lack of preparation. Don't you think that's one of the reasons why on the election day we hear this center has not gotten
materials, essential materials, and all those things? That lack of preparation. I believe if you are within the time frame, prescribed by law, you don't need to be afraid. And one thing is this: you see, election is a very big issue and a very big project in terms of logistics, in terms of training of personnel, in terms of provision of the needed funds and all that. So you need to plan for it. And I feel that ETSEC actually didn't have sufficient time. After all, the ETSEC had just been constituted.
Exactly.
They have not even had time to settle down, to interact with themselves, and then to plan. And then we're just fixing the date for election. So I think they would have told the government that, look, we need some more time to conduct this. And everyone actually would have understood, because they've just come on board and they need to settle down and they need to prepare. And they would have given them the time to do so. After all, we have not fought ourselves in the street now because election has not been conducted.
Yes.
We are waiting and we'll be patient if due process is followed.
And so, do you see the pending issues in court being resolved soon for this election to take place?
Yes, I think it will be resolved. And I think also, good enough, the government is reaching out to aggrieved individuals and sectors, because the government knows, and that is kind of them and wise of them, that it doesn't do them any good to conduct an election that will bring crisis, because in the midst of crisis there can be no progress, and crisis is not one of the dividends of democracy we are praying for, breathing for. So I think they are doing a wise thing. They are reaching out. I see the case in courts either being resolved amicably, because out of court settlement is allowed.
Okay.
And if the aggrieved parties say, okay, what made us come to court has been amicably resolved, and we want to go back and concentrate our energy on going for the election, the court will oblige them.
Okay, so now what's your message to all stakeholders involved in this process?
First of all, those who are really angry, to contest in elections, let's be a little bit patient. And then to the government and ETSEC, we should continue to reach out peacefully to people. We want a peaceful state. We don't want an election that will tear us apart. And we commend the government, we commend the officials, we commend some other stakeholders that do not want to be heads or even seen who are underground, making some peace move. After all, Edo State belongs to all of us.
And so what's your final word concerning this issue?
Elections should be conducted very, very peacefully and according to law. And whoever wins in the election should actually be given the opportunity to win. Under Jonathan, he conducted election. Abba won. He gave it to them. He conducted election in Ondo. Labour Party won. He gave it to them. He conducted election in Edo here. APC won. And he gave it to them. And then election was conducted in Ekiti. PDP won. He gave it to them. That's it. That's what democracy is all about. But where there is a process of brutal exclusion and there is rigging and the election is not free and fair, it is difficult. We didn't see fights in the streets in all those states because the election was free, it was fair, it was transparent, the results were easy to accept. And everybody went back to the drawing board and then they joined hands to put together to build the states.
Many thanks. Pastor Greg Iyayi is a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. He joined us on this week's edition of Frontline to discuss the restraining order against HCEC from conducting the local government election in Edo State. And that's it on Frontline this week. Please join us again for another exciting edition. I am Ubehi Utubo Aprasai.